White. So, thanks, Clerk Fontaine. Could you please read the roll call?
Councilmember Larson,
Yes.
Councilmember White,
Present.
Councilmember Dan Hahn,
Present.
Councilmember Cox. Let the record reflect that Councilmember Cox is not present. Council President Stubble,
Present.
Councilmember Josh Hahn,
Present.
Mayor Richardson, and let the record reflect that Mayor Richardson is not present either, but you do have a quorum.
Thanks, City Clerk Fontaine. We need to approve the agenda. I would entertain a motion to do so.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Larson. A second.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman White. Any amendments or changes to the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the agenda? Please say aye. Councilman Larson.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes. Yes.
And yes, our agenda is approved. We'll move now into a public hearing for Xander's Catering Incorporated, an application for the transfer of location of retail liquor license number 18, formerly located at 740 East Main Street, Lander, Wyoming, to 101 Garfield Street, Baldwin Estate Edition, Block 2, Lots 1 and 2, in the Commercial District of Lander, Wyoming. I'll now open the hearing. Clerk Fontaine, could you please introduce and read?
On transfers, it's kind of weird. I feel like I should have a resolution or something to read, but I don't. Xander's Catering Incorporated applied on the form provided by the state of Wyoming to transfer the location of their retail liquor license from where they previously had it at their location where Bailey's bought down to their location on 101 Garfield. Everything appeared to be in order for the state. And I do see that Robin and Wade Alexander are here if the council had any questions for them. This was advertised the requisite 2 consecutive weeks.
Excellent.
I didn't receive any public comment, emails, or anything of that nature concerning the publication.
Thank you. Council, any questions or comments?
Me.
Any public comment then on the floor? If you have comment, please come forward. Thank you. Please wait till you turn on the microphone, Mr. Woolwine, please, so we can record. If you'll come all the way through. Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Charles Woolwine, 541 North 3rd Street, and wasn't planning on talking about this tonight, but since it's an opportunity, I might as well. I think it says like liquor license number 18. I think we got like 26 or 27, which is way too many liquor licenses. Good gravy. I'm on the, I'm not on it. I've got suggested that I start attending the Fremont Prevention Committee that meets over in Riverton. So I went over there and started going to that. And of course, they're all about prevention. So they want to prevent DUIs. That's good, right? They want to prevent fighting at the bars. That's good. But what I noticed is the one thing no one seems to be interested in doing is decreasing the amount of liquor. It's kind of like as long as it's not DUI, as long as it's not, in other words, as long as it's not visible. But what you can't see is the cirrhosis of the liver, the depression. You can see the suicide, alcohol fetal syndrome, you know, that kind of thing. And so if the prevention folks, which after I've been there a few times, I'll bring this up, but if you're really going to make any headway, you've got to decrease the amount of this drug, because we know that alcohol is the most destructive drug on planet Earth. Heroin, meth, fentanyl, cocaine, they kill about 113,000 Americans every year. Alcohol all by itself kills about 143,000. So I run into people, I got friends, I don't drink, I don't touch the stuff, never have. But I run into people all the time and it's just killing us. It's just killing us. So anyway, I just want to make the point that, I don't know, this is number 18. They're going to shuffle it from here to there and whatever they do. But it's still alcohol and it's still killing Lander and the people in Lander and and my good friends on the res, et cetera, et cetera. So That's it. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Woolwine. Any other comments on the transfer of this retail liquor license? Hearing none, I'll close the hearing. Rochelle, do I need to announce the time of closing the hearing? At 6:05, 6:06, according to this, instead of that clock. We have a second public hearing now on ordinance 2025-3, Quest Corporation DBA CenturyLink, franchise agreement granting a franchise to Quest Corporation DBA CenturyLink QC on behalf of itself and its affiliates, CenturyLink, to operate and maintain a telecommunications system, the system, in the city of Lander, Wyoming. I open this hearing at 6:06 PM. Clerk Fontaine.
This ordinance is being brought at the request of Public Works to bring up all of our franchise agreements and bring them into alignment so they all are similar in their terms and nature. This also was advertised in the paper. I've received no feedback to my knowledge, neither has Public Works.
Thank you. Council, questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll open this for public comment on the franchise agreement. If you have any comment, please approach the microphone, state your name and address. Seeing none, thank you so much. We will close this hearing at 6:07 PM. Now is the time for our communication from the floor. This is an open public comment period. Please approach the microphone in the front here and state your full name for the record. The meeting and these comments are recorded electronically, and all comments will be limited to 3 minutes.
Thank you, Council Madam President. My name is Tana Groomsmith. I'm with the Fremont County Prevention Program. I just wanted to come and let you all know that I will be doing a responsible beverage server training February 28th in Riverton. And I believe that Miss Even, if that's how you say your last name, provided you with a flyer as well. I have been trained to do TIPS training now, have been doing it since 2013, continue to do it in Fremont County. I'm happy to answer any questions if you'd like. I can say that I do know that there are 3 establishments here in Lander that do have current certified TIPS trainers. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. We generally don't have back and forth discussion on these items, but could you leave your contact information for the council to contact you separately? This has been on our minds for a couple of reasons, so thank you. Other public comment tonight? You may. Yes, thanks, Ms. East. You can come forward. Yes, if you press the button with the little human head. Thank you.
Hello. My name's Deborah East. And what else was I supposed to say where I live?
I think it's just state your full name for the record. The mayor asks for address too, but it's not on the agenda, so
Deborah East.
great.
I haven't been here for a while and it's nice to see all of you. I've been thinking a lot about the local to state to national governance, and some of the worldwide consequences for people and the land have me cogitating. It's a full mind and body and spirit form of contemplation, as we all know with the word cogitation. Having reached out to the Wyoming congressional delegation, the governor, and the state legislators, I'm adding this desk with all of you and time with you. In this setting, we are very much local and neighbors. I feel we've been losing that a little bit in some conversations. And I've been reflecting on fences and boundaries and processes that are being erected or torn down as tools of ostracism and intimidation, both of which are familiar as harmful in small towns and schools, businesses, government, places of worship, and other human gatherings. We often don't know how to address these challenges, or we lose our grip to stand firmly in our concerns. And I want to thank you all for this moment of local governance is working, and that's what we're here for. I think we need a reminder of basic expectations in conflict. It can be improved by consideration, not force. Sharing this message that I'm going to read is one that I've shared here before, and I felt like it was needed again. I don't think there's anything in particular on in my attention that I think the city council needs to do, like in this moment. There's not something that's come up. It's just this perpetual issue since the change in presidency from my perspective. I'm sharing this message from the heart, again, with permission by the poet. And I want to say we each need to do better with fences and boundaries and processes within ourselves and between each other and where we can reach. So I just want to recall something that's basic for all of us that we've experienced. This was written in 1998. I feed his snowbound stock. He jumpstarts my frozen pickup. We hate each other's votes, but in the spring, we mend fences anyway. So thanks for your work and thanks for the time.
Thank you for your comment, Ms. East.
Mhm.
Other public comment for tonight? Please restate your
Charles.
name. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, Charles Woolwine. Land are a safe haven for all unborn little girls and boys. Why not? Part 2. The killing of unborn children is not a political issue. No, it's simply an act of pure evil, a repugnant stench in the nostrils of a holy God. And according to God's word, we never want to grieve the Holy Spirit. Last month, I pointed out that during 2023, sharks killed 2 Americans, while at the same time, men and women killed over 1 million precious little unborn babies. In Wyoming, if an unborn baby cannot survive without their mother, then the mom can have it killed. As in, what? I'm 20 weeks pregnant. I can't afford another kid. I'm going to have it killed. Again, if an unborn child is not viable, that is, cannot survive without its mother, then the mother can have it killed. For adults, Wyoming has the death penalty. It was last used in 1992, and for the last 32 years, regardless of how horrific the crime, not a single person has been executed. However, in Wyoming, since 1992, 16,000 unborn babies have been slaughtered. Some people say they want to see Wyoming grow. Well, since 1992, 16,000 unborn Wyomingites have been executed. Another fact, so far, during January and February of 2025, America has executed a total of 2 criminals. And true, perhaps they were innocent, but at least these 2 convicted killers were afforded the benefit of a trial by jury. At the same time, in America, during these same first 42 days of 2025, 119,000 unborn children have been executed. And of these 119,000 slaughtered babies, how many were guilty of a crime? 0, none. And of these 119,000 helpless victims, how many were completely innocent? Of course, 100%. Folks, you can present any scenario you want, and within that scenario, one thing will always be true. For every executed unborn child in your scenario will always be a totally innocent victim every time, any scenario. In closing, I want to remind all of us that God is watching, and God is not stupid. And God is not impressed with how America, including Wyoming, is killing his unborn little girls and boys. Have you ever heard the saying that children are a gift from God? It is my opinion that you cannot expect God to bless America while at the same time, each and every day, we are killing 3,000 of his unborn little girls and boys. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Woolwine. Other public comment? Great. Thank you all. We'll move on to mayor and council updates. Councilman Josh Hahn, can you start us off, please?
I only have stuff from the public, and I had a question for you, Cap. So the parking of trailers and like campers and stuff like that on city streets, what is the official rule on how long? Like everything I read it was kind of a gray area. There's no like black or white on do you happen to know the?
Not with 100% certainty, to be honest with you, but my recollection is 72 hours.
It's like 3 days. As long
3
as
days.
As long as it's hooked to a vehicle, or if it's hooked to a vehicle, it can remain on there for a while.
I think it's 72 hours.
Okay.
And I think it's a general across the board with vehicles the same. They have to be moved every 72 hours. They have to be registered and legal to be on the public street.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The second thing I had was in regards to last meeting, I kind of found it irritating that two of the highest paid city employees were not performing the duties of the grant cycle correctly. And then kind of called out the state after they left instead of asking questions while they were here. I found that a little irritating. That's, from what I read on an email, that's kind of not good for future grant processes and stuff if we just let them add up and everything and not complete a project. They say money is the, we don't have enough money to do the project. Let's bank it and save enough money. But yet we're talking about all these wants that we need, considering, a park, a flood wall, all this other stuff. Maybe instead of thinking about that, we should accomplish a few of these other things that we've got. We got so many irons in the fire and we're not completing anything with what we got going. And this was also brought to me by the public as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hahn. I would caution us, I think, to be wary of bringing up personnel issues in a public meeting. That might be perhaps a better private conversation. But thank you for representing those comments from the public.
This is a public meeting and they get paid by the public, correct?
They do.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilman Dan Hahn. Updates. You've had an excellent vacation. I'm glad for you. Councilwoman White.
Thank you. A few things. I did attend the Solid Waste District meeting last month, and I got to say, it is impressive what that board has done in the transition that the Waste District is going through. Again, just is so impressed with what they're doing. And also, having said that, given that Councilman Larson is a voting member of that board, it seems like overkill to have me also attend those meetings. So I would suggest that I step off of that and let's rely on John being a member for that. I know it's a minor element of being more efficient, but yeah, it just seems like a silly thing to do. Did attend the ENI task force meeting, and they are trying to finalize the first round of a grant proposal that would provide backup power for what's called resiliency hubs. So scattered around the community. So, if we had the power go out right now, there would be a number of homes that would be intolerable fairly quickly in weather like this, or likewise in the summer, very hot. So working with some schools, churches, and other buildings, as well as some of the city critical infrastructure, to be able to have a power supply that would be able to function off the grid to provide those places. So they're doing great work on that, and things look good for that as well. Also attended the LIDA meeting. Unfortunately, I didn't have a quorum for that. So no official business could transpire, but it was a nice time to get to meet some of the new members and for them to have a conversation with me. That was really nice to do. And then lastly, sorry for coming in last minute from ski practice, but I do want to give a shout out. Middle school skiers are doing phenomenal. They've won both of the two events that we've had. We have a third one coming up this week. And it's, I know there's other coaches and athletes in the room who can appreciate this. It is just such a treat and a delight to be able to watch kids who could barely walk on skis, classic ski, a really hard course 3 weeks later, and then likewise shift to skate ski and be back to being weeble wobbles that do in fact fall down quite frequently, and then to learn that skill. And I hope the kids understand that they really can do hard things. They're doing it all the time. And I hope that's one of the life lessons they can take with them. Regardless of how fast they ski, they're doing amazing stuff. And I think that's important that they know that and that we celebrate that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman White. Councilman Larson?
Yes, Council President. Took the opportunity to visit my new liaison post here this last few weeks, and I've had the opportunity to stop in and visit with people there at the senior center. In fact, they had their meeting there this morning and got to meet all of the people there. What a good group, you know. It's just a great group. They had sold all 400 of their Wimpy burgers that will be be delivered sometime in March. They also just this last week had a fundraiser where they had prime rib dinners. There was 100 tickets available. They sold all 100 and done very well on the proceeds there with the dinner, as well as a raffle there for a gun. They are involved in a lot more in the community than what I was ever aware of. They currently they are doing taxes free of charge. 18 and older, you know, you don't have to be 100 years old to go in there. 18 and older, and they'll do your taxes free of charge. We think about the meals that they serve, and it's phenomenal. You know, this month, I think it was just shy of 3,200 in January. Excuse me, January, and it comes out to almost 160 meals a day that they're putting out. And you know, not only do they deliver food, but they're kind of the check-in person for, you know, people that show up there. You know, if somebody doesn't show up at the door to pick up their meal, you know, they don't just leave it up there on the doorstep and hope the dogs don't get it. You know, they make a point to find out if the person is all right. You know, if they're feeling all right, if they're out of town, what's going on. When they come to the senior center, here just this last week, I guess, that there was a person that showed up, and there was some of the staff there that says, boy, you know, Joe, he doesn't look too shiny here today. And they got with him, made sure he got home, and found out that he had pneumonia. He's in the hospital there the next day. And, you know, so there's just a lot more personal touch to the senior center than I had ever realized there before. The other one that was a whole new ball game to me was the Paposia Conservation District. And that was something that I've had very little opportunity other than to get my well water tested, you know, to work with them. But I learned that just this last couple months that the 4 mile stretch of the Paposia River that runs through town down by the park, and that people use for bathing there over the 4th of July at various times. But it is now considered delisted from E. coli contamination. And that was due to extensive work by the Conservation District and other partners that they had with them. I was very intrigued to learn about virtual fencing. You know, I'd heard about it for dogs. You know, you electrocute your dog if he steps out of the yard or something, but I didn't realize that they had it for cattle. And you know, just the management practices alone are just phenomenal there. But it's not quite ready for prime time yet. You know, there's some issues there that that they're having to deal with. But it was just interesting, you know, to see the different things that's going on in the community and how they pertain to the community. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Larson. I'm glad you're enjoying the rotation on liaisons.
Yeah, it is.
Are you amenable to Councilman White's suggestion to bring the solid waste district updates back as well?
You know, there's a, they've got the new, wait, what am I calling that building?
The transfer station?
The transfer station. Yes, thank you. That thing is ready to go. You know, we're looking good until they're thinking 2027, maybe 2028. They keep packing that stuff tighter and tighter, and that just extends the life of the landfill. But we are ready to start with the shipping it over to Sandra there in Riverton. And things are going very well there. Trying to think what else. That's all I can think of for right now. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think as long as that works for you to bring those updates as a board member, then Councilwoman White doesn't have to have 3 liaisons, which is a lift. Appreciate that. My own liaison updates are fairly thin. The tree board has brought bylaws, which we'll consider for approval later in tonight's meeting. And they'll meet next week to start to dig into the ordinances that we've directed them to revise, review, and clean up, since we have 3 at times conflicting ordinances regarding our urban forest, as they call it. And lastly, I'm assigned to the school board, but have yet to make a meeting because Councilwoman Cox took over the school board last time for me, so I could finish up some tasks with energy and environment. If there's no further updates from the council, we'll move to staff updates. Captain Wah.
Business is good. I mean, we have 5 of our staff that is a third of the way through the promotional process for the promotion to corporal and doing a little schedule jockey. We have a couple of our officers that are expecting babies any day now. So other than that, life is good for us.
Glad to hear it. Congrats to the expecting families. Any questions for Captain Wah? Seeing none. Assistant Mayor, would you please? give us
Thank
your
you.
updates?
Right now, we are in full strategic planning mode. The facilitator met with staff today with some amazing results. It's great to have a professional in the midst to suss out ideas. I wanted to remind you guys that I sent an email from that contractor for a survey that she would like you to fill out in advance. That's due Friday at 8 a.m. If you need help filling that out or you don't like the Google form, I sent you a PDF also. So please fill that out by Friday the 8th. And the results of your surveys will be discussed in the February 18th special work session for council members. And that meeting is dedicated specifically to strategic planning alone. The only other thing we've got going on, AIRS is working hard to meet their deadline, their new deadline for the master plan. And that presentation will be later in February also. The goal of that is to present it to council and then sometime in April or May have the council adopt the recommendations of that plan. And I think that is all I've got for tonight, unless you have any questions for me.
Any questions? I'll ask one. Do we have more than one session planned for strategic planning? In the past, we've had multiples. Are we planning on just doing the 18th?
I think that's up to the facilitator. So the 18th, she would like to meet again with staff and council as a whole. We don't have a predetermined date for that. And then the products, she'll work with, mostly with Anne
Mhm.
in community development to get the products in a manner where we can all read them and understand them. And then again, we'd also like council to adopt that strategic plan.
Any lingering questions for our assistant mayor? Treasurer Lara.
Last week, Monty and I were in Cheyenne all week. WHAM has a new agenda that they are sending people every day during the legislature to meet with the legislators and listen to we sat through corporation meetings. We were assigned the Senate, so we sat at the Senate meetings. WHAM does have a lunch with locals, so if any of you would like to go down, we can get you signed up. The next one is tomorrow, and then there's one the last Thursday of the month. But I would strongly recommend that to everybody. It was very enlightening. I think that WHAM's new director is much more motivated for having WHAM present at the legislature. So as a united front, she kind of schools everybody on topics and where we're standing and for testimony. But if anyone would like to go down any day this month, we could get that set up for you. We did meet with Governor Gordon, and then we sat through the SLIB meeting, and you'll be approving that, or you'll be discussing that grant for the 300,000. We did get awarded the 300,000 MRG money from SLIB last Thursday.
Great.
Any questions?
Questions for our treasurer?
Everyone, and this might be premature, Shari, so feel free to say that's a good question and we'll get back to it. But with still a number of bills in the legislature looking to reduce property taxes, and that being like 10 to 12% of our general fund, what can you anticipate at this point that might be affecting how our budget shakes out?
You know, it's really hard to put a number to that because we don't know who will put in for it. You know, not everybody can put in for it. Mike Jones did say that they had 2,000 people already put in for it. Today, the paperwork that came out of WHAM, they said they still, backfill has been totally voted down. The only backfill they're thinking they'll do is for special districts or fire districts, but no backfill for municipalities. Senator Salazar did say he would try to help us in our supplemental next year for it, but we really don't know how hard we're going to get hit because they did pull the electricity on tax, or the tax on electricity. That bill did get pulled. So, you know, we just don't know how bad we're going to end up getting hit if they keep making changes to it. So I can't say that. I mean, worst case scenario, if we got 50%, it'd be $300,000, but I don't know how many people or what their assessed valuation is of where they live at to be able to put a number to that.
Okay, thank you for that. And you mentioned fire districts, cemetery districts, but we don't have either of those. So we wouldn't receive any backfill for that. So it's potentially, if these things pass, it could impact because our current city fire gets 3 mills,
Three
I think,
mills.
3 of the 8 mills that Lander gets. So that would potentially affect them. And we don't have a cemetery district. We pay for that out of general fund.
Right. I'm not sure on the fire if it's just districts or if they would, because they did have several firemen down there. Lanny Applegate, who's from here, he testified and he was there pretty much the whole time we were there. Because they know that would be quite a hit to them to take 50%.
It would be
hit of us.
huge. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman White. Other questions for our treasurer? Thank you for taking the time to go to Cheyenne, and thanks to the mayor in absentia as well. I think it's so important to have help inform the decision makers there about those impacts to us, even if we're
Everyone should do that. It is kind of amazing. I would never want that job. It's the hours, the one night the house met till midnight. It was long days because we'd start out at 7 o'clock and then they'd give us all the meetings you had to sit through. It was just long days and none of the chairs were comfortable. It was, it was long, but I would recommend.
It's a glowing review. Maybe it's better chairs once you're elected, I hope. Well, thank you. Our attorney will join us later in the meeting. He was called away to another client, the Central Wyoming Community College, for an emergency meeting, probably related to do some legislative impacts there. So he'll join later. And our clerk, any updates for you, Rochelle?
The application period for the city treasurer position has closed. We received approximately 40 applications. So the committee will start reviewing those and go through the process. 3 requests for bids are going out for different vehicles. I'm trying to remember, there are 2 Durango Pursuit requests for bids for 2 vehicles for the police department. I believe there are 3 F-150 4x4 trucks, and I apologize, I don't know what department those were for. And then 2 water department, okay. And then 2 requests for bids for Durango cars for city travel purposes and things of that nature. So you may see those out and about in the newspaper with the tentative timeline of bids being opened here at City Hall at 2 o'clock on March 6th, with the thought of potentially considering award of them, depending on what comes in and what the council wants to do, the March 11th council meeting.
Great.
Any questions for me?
Thank you. Questions for our clerk, Councilman Hahn?
Those come out of the equipment budget, don't they?
Yes.
What is our budget looking like? Is that available?
Well, we closed about $1.4 million at 6/30/24.
Thank you.
Other questions for our clerk? Hearing none, we will move on to our new business non-action item. We have the pleasure of Brian Brown from Summit West CPAs here to present on our audit for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. Thanks, Mr. Brown. If you can come on up, you know the drill.
Pleasure, like that. All right, like I said, thank you for having me. My name is Brian Brown, after that glorious introduction by Councilwoman Stubble there. I'm part of Summit West CPA Group. I've been there and a Lander resident since August of 2010. So been auditing the city of Lander that whole time too. So I'm starting to understand what's going on around these parts, and actually had the I don't know if you'd say benefit, but the ability to work with Shari that whole time, and you know, her time coming to an end and knowing that there's 40 people that have applied, I hope that you guys find a suitable successor for Shari's position. Again, it's been a good run by Shari, and it's not an easy task to take care of the city's treasurer duties. So that's what she paid me to come here to say, right? So, you know, but no, I am here to present the audit. I know that Shari had disseminated it out to the council members in hopes that if you did have any questions or anything to go through it prior to, you know, this is about 70 pages worth of information. I've got it summarized in about 3 with some bullet points that I wanted to talk about. Basically, a little bit about what we do when we come for a financial statement audit. You know, the term audit has a kind of a negative connotation when it comes to, you know, IRS audits and looking at things. But basically, from a financial statement perspective, we come in as an independent third party to make sure that the numbers that we are presented are free from any material misstatements. And I say material because we run materiality. I'm not looking for things that are off $2, $3, $5. I'm looking for things that are off 15,000, 20,000, you know. So when we say that there's no material misstatements, that's, you know, the highest level of assurance that we can give on the financial statements, being that it's an unmodified opinion, meaning that the numbers that we get from Shari, we might have minimal adjustments here and there, but nothing material as far as what needs to take place there. So a couple just overview items that I was going to go over. I'm not going to go through all 70 pages. I'm sure that that's probably fine with everybody. But if there is specific questions, or you know, I know that it is a little challenging sometimes to read this. But like Councilman Hahn, you just asked about the budget and some line items. If you were to go through in what Shari had talked about there, the overall general fund balance, income over expenses, what we all know as net income as a business, for the fiscal year was 1.68 million. So that left about $13 million in fund balance for the city, as of June 30th. That's your total net position. You can go again, you guys all have pages and copies of it, but on page 14, that's the balance sheet. And of that 13.8 million that we just talked about, you've got it broke out to what it's set aside for, right? You got special restrictions for certain things. So, the optional 1% sales tax is about $7 million of that 14 million that we just talked about. You've got assigned fund balance for upcoming retirees, to prepare for the payout for retirees. For those equipment reserves, that's what Shari was referring to, about 1.4 million there. You can see we're like middle of the page, in that area. Special projects, 270,000. And then unassigned monies at the end of the fiscal year, $4.6 million of basically free and clear that is in the general fund area. Special funds are designed a little bit differently. We did create a new schedule this year in the back that kind of breaks out each special fund, that special revenue fund, so you can go through and see all the different things from economic development and airport and so on and so forth, which is also, it's a helpful tool to kind of see those special projects in there. Okay. Anyway, a couple things on the audit that I wanted to point out. Overall increase, like I just mentioned, of 1.68 million. Leaving the general fund balance from $12.1 million in 2023 to $13.8 million in 2024. Again, $7 million of that is that optional sales tax. We talked about, or not we, but Missy had brought up the tax side of things. Of the revenue for the city in the fiscal year 2024, 7.3 million came from taxes. That's a variety of different taxes. That's the property taxes, sales tax, use tax, everything like that. So, it is hard to pinpoint what these bills will do when it talks about the property tax portion of things. A little side note, I'm in Kiwanis, and we actually have Tara Berg coming on Thursday to present this Thursday at noon at Kiwanis to discuss some of the stuff that she knows on the property tax and how she thinks that it'll affect the county too. So, and that's open to anyone in the public that wants to go in and kind of get an hour of knowledge from the county assessor there too. So, again, license and fees brought in about 290,000. Intergovernmental funds, that's just other governments and other things like that, was 744,000. And charges for services, 206,000. Overall investment income returns, $416,000 for the year, which is up significantly just due to higher interest rates and being smart with the city's money and smart investments there, what you're limited to do. Where the money was spent, basically, I'm just talking in this whole 70 pages about page 14 and page 15. So if you go back to page 15, and that first column, that's the general fund. That's kind of the general business. That's the most important part in running the business, if you will. The rest of the stuff falls suit, but the general fund is everything that takes place there. So city administrative, finance, legal costs was about 1.43 million for the fiscal year. City spent 2.95 million on public safety. Public works, 1.62 million, and about $1.4 million on capital project improvements for the year. That was stuff put into service, not talking about construction and process with like the water treatment plant, the big water tank. As far as audits are concerned, we do two different things: a financial statement audit and then what we call a single audit. When you entity spends over $750,000 of federal awards, then you're subject to the single audit requirements. The city, that's further back in here that we talk about the single audit and the scheduled federal awards that you guys spent for the year. But the city spent 2.75 million in expenditures for the year. So it did cause a single audit. So the grant that we tested this year was the AML grant that you had expended the majority of the cost on that water project. I'm I'm happy to present that, in our test for internal controls and our test for compliance with those grants, we didn't have any findings in that area either. So, yeah, it was a great job the database set aside, for users like myself to go in and find all that data and information. It used to be binders that Shari would put together with all the grant compliance requirements. Now the new database that you guys have set up is really kind of a godsend for us to go through and look at stuff, and really any public person can go in there and look at it. So it's good job. Kudos to you on getting that done too. Aside from that, I don't really have anything too blaring. We did have one finding in this audit report that you'll see. We did restate the financial statements for, basically what it was just the accounting for a payroll accrual at end of year. So the payroll process changed a couple years back in that the time frame from June 15th to July 15th, that capture of those wages that were paid during that time period wasn't accounted for accurately. So we restated the prior year fund balance by about, it was overall negative adjustment for about $40,838 at the beginning fund balance for the water sewer, and then $101,000 for the general fund. And again, it's just the accounting for how wages are paid and that they're owed to those individuals. If those guys were to stop working, July 2nd, where they took the 4th of July and went off, it still owed that money. So the liability just wasn't recorded. So that was the only finding really that we had. There was the findings that we had in the last time about controls over financial reporting and some implementation of new accounting standards. Those were all rendered and taken care of. So again, kudos to Shari and the team for taking care of that. And yeah, any questions for me specifically?
Questions for Mr. Brown? Councilwoman White.
Yeah, thank you. Two, and one you kind of alluded to. So one of the questions I suspect we all hear about, questions from our constituents is, we're obviously dependent on grant funding for a lot of these projects, and making sure that recording of all these different grant things, how is our system? You get to see lots of different organizations and municipalities. So where do we stand in that? Are there improvements we can make in our grant reporting?
Yeah, I would say, first, great question, but of the municipalities that we take care of, with this new database management that you have and the ability to track everything that way, it really opens up the ability for everybody to see it. So as long as that continues and improves that process, I think you guys are, top of the pack as far as getting that,
Nice.
in order for transparency and able to see it and account for those things. There's different compliance requirements with all these grant fundings that you have to follow. So having a systematic approach to going about doing that is a great way to do it.
Okay, thank you. You actually answered my second question. Again, all of us want to be transparent. And again, that's what we hear from our constituents about being able to be transparent with our accounting. And it sounds like that likewise is working well.
Yeah, Shar and I had discussed it, and I think any public request for any information that it's in this, this new portal, this new system, she can basically just email a link and someone can go right to the support. That's exactly how we audit things too. Like I didn't have to come on site and dig through a bunch of papers anymore. It's just like I tell her what I want to look at, she gives me permissions to go look at it, and then it's all right there. So it's not like we can, we don't see it, hey, it's not scanned in, it's all just sitting right there for us to look at. So it's definitely a good system.
That's really excellent to hear. Other questions for Mr. Brown?
Yeah.
Agreed.
I have one
Councilman
real quick, even though it's like small change and stuff, what's your thoughts on the use of a credit card for bill paying on stuff like that? I know in the state auditor's course that I took, it said that was kind of a no-no because it's like the most opt for fraud or something like that.
Yeah, I think, any process that would be the best process would be, the old fashioned purchase order system where you rely on a provider to give you the goods, you inspect the goods that they're all there, you get a purchase order and you say, yeah, I get it all. And then I get an invoice and then I pay it. That's how we'd like to do everything. But, anymore in this day and age with how businesses run, it's really hard to do that. So I think as long as the processes around the credit cards, because you're right, it is a risk area that, depending on who has the credit card and the spending limit. So I think in order to minimize your risk, you just make sure that there's no cash advance ability to take on those credit cards. You keep the limits to an area, that are reasonable. I could tell you a little side note. We, at our firm level, have a company credit card that one person's in charge of putting the limits on. I was just with a team in Sheridan the weekend before last, and my limit got reached. So I went to pay for lunch and my card got declined, which was quite embarrassing. So I had to make a phone call and get some stuff added to it. But there's systems out there now that you can kind of mitigate your risk on that side of things, you know. But as far as the process, you know, it's a lot cheaper than to go through the process to pay it all at once on a credit card than it is to, you know, write a check for all of those purchases, you know, and just a internal process and the record keeping and so on and so forth. So I think long story short is as long as you have the right processes, internal processes in place and checkoffs and internal controls, then it's safe enough to do it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Kudos for referencing our financial training. I'm impressed. Any other questions for Mr. Brown?
Yeah, I just want to remind you guys, the reason we have $7 million in the optional tax is because we had to have 5 million in there to be able to get the 45 million of SRF funds that we have. So that we won't have that in there forever, because as soon as we start doing these projects, the streets, curbs, gutters, all have to be paid out of that optional tax.
Thank you. And that reminder is also here in the beginning of the document, which is helpful for us. Speaking of transparency, we just threw around a lot of big numbers for those of you in the audience. This report is in our packet, which is posted on the website next to our meeting minutes and agendas. So if you want to read the audit on a Sunday night to fall asleep, then it's available to you as well. Mr. Brown, thank you so much. We
Yeah, you bet.
appreciate
Thank you,
your
guys. Yep, take
expert
care.
overview and set of eyes. Thank you. And congrats, Treasurer Laura as well on good findings. We'll move on to the consent agenda. This is on the consent agenda tonight. We have approval of the January 14th regular city council minutes, approval of the January 28th work session city council minutes, and approval of bills and claims. Are there any items for discussion or to pull from the consent agenda? I'll mention one edit to the work session agenda minutes here before we approve the agenda. There was a missing crucial word, a not, when we were discussing in the work session the Forest Service lease and our decision to not pursue another long-term lease. Not was missing, so it looked like we were pursuing another long-term lease. I've spoken with the clerk about that correction. I hate to do the wordsmithing, but that one seemed crucial. Great. So then I would entertain a motion to approve our consent agenda with those as amended for those work session minutes.
Move to approve as amended.
Thank you, Councilman White. A second from
Second.
Councilman Jehan. And all in favor, or any further discussion? Sorry. Great, then sorry, I keep saying I'm in a board meeting, all in favor. We'll move to the vote.
Yes.
Councilman Jehan.
Yes.
Councilman Danhon.
Yes.
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 And yes, that motion has carried. We'll move on to our old business of action items, which is a very exciting one. I'm sure we're all thrilled to see this on the agenda. I would entertain a motion to untable and approve the lift recommendations to fund Lander Girls Softball League Complex. And in fact, let's split that into two motions. Let's untable and then work to approve. So I've been.
Moved on table.
Thank you, Councilman Jehan, who has moved to untable this item, seconded by Councilman Larson. Any discussion on untabling? Great, we'll discuss soon enough. Councilman Larson.
Yes.
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 And yes. So we have now untabled the discussion on funding the Lander Girls Softball League Complex request from the LIFT grants. I would entertain a motion to
Great.
approve this.
I would move to approve the lift recommendation for funding for the Girls Softball League, understanding that the city can provide some funds and work to do some of the improvements are needed. So to approve the lift recommendation for the scoreboards at the amount of $9,705.98.
Do I have a second for that? Seconded by Councilman Larson, moved by Councilwoman White. Any discussion on this? Councilman Hahn.
Yes, I have a problem with relying, I'm sorry, on the city. We got a lot of things that we need to sink our money into. And as much as I mean, I want this softball thing, but they applied just like anybody else for 0.5% sales tax money. And it's gradually getting dwindled down more and more and more from their original ask. And it keeps getting smaller every time we come to one of these meetings. And another thing, sorry to say, these girls are getting older by the minute, right? They want to try and have a softball field to play on before they graduate high school. And as fast as the city works at getting something completed, I'm afraid that's not going to happen for these young ladies. So, and all the presentations they brought to us, they did all the homework. They found local businesses to do the repairs so that the tax dollar would go back into the local businesses. They want to do it, they want to do things right, and I don't understand why we keep shutting them down. I thought, they were obviously accepted, the lift recommendations were accepted, and it's up to us to make that decision. And I think everything they brought to us and everything they've gone through and all the time they've spent, it shows they want it. Why spend city funds if we have 0.5% sales tax funds sitting there waiting for them to do the project? And they know what they need done. They've already gone through all this stuff. If we give them the money, they can hire local people to do the work. It'll be done deal. And then local people get to make money. They pay taxes as well, so they're getting money back. I don't understand why we're shrinking this down to something minimal and then including the city into it.
To,
Thank you,
To-
Councilman Hahn. Councilman.
to answer that, their original request actually was this for the scoreboards. And it was through the lift committee that they were encouraged to shoot for the moon. And in the lift committee making that suggestion, the lift committee was trying to find the right words for this. The lift committee did not abide by the guidelines that we as a governing body established for the awards of this. We've talked about it before. Clearly, I'm staunch in believing that we should follow the guidelines that we've established in terms of how the recipients work. You have a different perspective on that. I don't think we'll come to agreement on that, and I think that's part of our conversation. But this was their original request, was actually a flat $9,000 for scoreboards.
Councilman Jehan.
I'm sorry, if the lift recommended them to shoot for the moon, they're the ones in charge of looking over these applications. If they told them to do that, then by all means. They told them to shoot for the moon and they asked to get a field repaired that the city was supposed to be taking care of, but it's been in disrepair for many years. So why don't we just, okay. What are your recommendations for all of the leftover 0.5% sales tax money that you're trying to save?
I think Councilman
I think
Jehan,
that's-
that topic is
Yeah,
off the
that's
agenda right now.
not germane to this. We do have different opinions about that as well, but the topic
do.
at hand is the appropriate award for the girls softball league.
I'm going to go to Councilman Dan Hahn.
All right, let's go back a little bit. The city council, we have given money for murals, we've given money for various businesses, some of them have failed. But the last one kind of got me, and I love Knowles, I tell you what, I do. But the city of Lander gave $45,000 for a future party that Knowles is gonna go throw money in. It's supposed to be $200,000 for this party. And what kind of bothers me about this is a couple of years ago, Knowles came to us because they were in dire straits. They didn't have any money. They were looking for money back east. And all of a sudden they come up with a bunch of money and then they're going to throw a $200,000 party. I tell you what, that's irresponsible to me I know it's a celebration, but and I don't want to hammer on Knowles because they're a great outfit. But where I'm going with this is it was an easy decision to give Knowles $45,000, and we have an opportunity to invest in our own children here, and we're squabbling over money. This This is insane to me. I don't get it because I've sat here from the time that we've started with the lift money. And they did the same thing all the way across the board. That's why it failed. And I supported it all the way to the end. I even supported it on this last go around. But we have given money out all over the place, but to give $45,000 to a party and then you want to get skimpy with our own children is insane. So I'll tell you what I'm going for. I'm going for equal to what Noel's got, $45,000. And for me, it's either that or that's just insanity to do this to these kids. I mean, I can't believe it. I can't even believe we're talking about it, to tell you the truth. This should be easy, especially when Lyft was wanting to give a bunch of money, and now the council is basically going to go against Lyft and try to chisel this down to $10,000. This is embarrassing, people.
Thank you, Councilman Hahn. Other comments? I'll take the privilege of the floor to make clear, I think, something that we haven't said yet tonight, that the city has committed to investing in this property, in this facility, which we lease, to make the improvements that we have been made aware of, thankfully, because of the softball league's application and the many discussions they had with us. So the city is committed to investing in this property to the tune of approximately $70,000. So I don't believe we are skipping on the athletes here in this situation. We're improving the facility. We're just doing it through our funds rather than the grant award at the fullest amount that was considered. So we're granting an amount that we think is appropriate and then taking responsibility, frankly, for a facility that is in disrepair because of the city council's decisions in the past. Councilman Dan Hahn.
So what you're telling me, hearing aids, it's hard to hear, especially in this room. But what you're telling me is the city wants to be responsible after the city basically said they didn't want to have anything to do with it, now wants to step up and we can afford $10,000. Is that what you just told me? Is that what you just said?
Councilman Hahn, I think what I was trying to explain was that the city has committed to making $70,000 worth of improvements to the facility, given to the repairs and improvements that are needed that we're now aware of, that the softball league had originally requested. And now we're going to grant them for the 9,000 plus some change for the scoreboards. So if I may, so the full list of requests that the softball league has brought to us, with the absence of some storage, we're just meeting them, the majority of them through the city council or through the city budget.
Okay, so for my clarification then, city's going to take responsible $70,000 and take care of everything. And the 9,000 is, okay, well, that's totally different. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hahn. Any other comments from council? Thank you, Councilman Larson. We have called the question on approving a lift recommendation or a lift grant to the Lander Girls Softball League to the tune of $97,000. What's the exact amount there, Missy?
9,000.
I'm sorry. Woo! I know, right? Excuse me. To the tune of $9,705.98. Councilman Jehan.
Yep.
Yes.
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 And yes, that motion passes. Thank you. Thank you for your continued attendance and information sharing. We'll move on now to new business. And the first item we have in front of us is approval of the tree board bylaws. Those are in your packet. They have been reviewed by, I believe, both our Attorney Phillips and Clerk Fontaine. I would entertain a motion to put this on the table for discussion, and then we'll have discussion on that topic.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Larson.
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman White. And discussion. Anything you'd like to add or bring it to our attention, Attorney Phillips, Clerk Fontaine?
No, I think that they were well drafted. They give some flexibility in terms of what they're going to be doing in the future and articulated what their goals and what their ambitions are. So I thought it was pretty well done.
Discussion on council. Councilwoman White.
So there are some edits here or questions that you actually contributed here about that I think we should clarify before we adopt these. So
Thank you.
do the regular meetings need to be held at a time and, or it states regular meetings will be held at a time and place to be established by the members. And you had the question of, do the bylaws need to be clearly specify if they're public meetings, like on the city website, et cetera? So can we get,
I didn't see that comment prior to tonight, so that's something that we'd have to look at, whether or not they qualify as a governmental entity that would require to be fulfilling the Public Meetings Act. If they were, then it would have to be clarified on their bylaws when those meetings would be. Generally, I recommend that they are specified when they would be, because then people know and everybody knows when those meetings would be.
yeah, do we know, do they have a regularly scheduled that we could amend the bylaws to include that?
They do, Councilwoman White. And they intend fully to treat these as though they are public meetings. In fact, they wanted these to be on the website if that's possible, which we can talk about later. So you recommend we amend these bylaws to state their regular meeting schedule?
That would be best, yes. They can always amend the bylaws in the future if they need to, but it would definitely be best to have it reflect when those meetings would be.
Got it. Well, they
Madam
meet-
President, if
Oh,
I may. The bylaws that I'm familiar with for the boards that I'm assigned to are very similar to the tree board, and they say at a time and a date to be approved by all board members. And then the website is where the actual date and time is set. So the Housing Authority Board and the Planning Commission are both that way, and they're not listed in the bylaws themselves.
And that's true. I'm just saying what best practice is.
Great. Well, it seems like there's more flexibility if they are noticed on the website, but not specified in the bylaws, so they don't have to do bylaw amendments every time a schedule changes. So Attorney Phillips, if you're comfortable with that, I think we leave this language as it stands.
I would say maybe to add language about meeting date and times will follow public meeting law requirements in terms of advance notice. So that way,
I don't even think you really need that in there.
Okay.
I think what they have in there is fine.
okay.
I'll take back to them that we will get the notice of the meetings up on our website and disseminate its information, but we won't amend these bylaws. Councilwoman White, do you want to bring the other comment?
Yeah, so the other one is about what they have written is these bylaws may be amended by a quorum at any annual or regular meeting of the Lander Urban Forest Council, provided that notice of the proposed amendment or amendments has been included in the notice of such meeting, which seems pretty straightforward. I don't think that needs any attention.
Great. The question was whether or not, Adam, we needed to have city council approval of any amendments made.
I'm not sure if we've done, I know but bylaws have been amended in the past. And if I remember right, Regine, you might have to remind me, I believe they did come before city council for approval, and they generally do.
Okay. Well, then I would suggest that we add that sentence that these bylaws may be amended as it states, city council will approve amended bylaws. We can add that sentence at the end. Does that work, Attorney Phillips? Okay.
Yes.
Other comments or questions on the bylaws? Well, we have a motion and a second, I believe, to approve these as amended. Let's add that. So we just made that one amendment. Do you want me to go through the? I knew you were gonna make me do that. I would entertain a motion to add that sentence then to amend these bylaws to say that the city council will approve any amended bylaws.
So moved.
Thank you.
I'm going to do the shortcut.
Second, please.
Second.
Seconded by Dan Hahn, moved by Councilman White. We are voting on the amendment to the, not to the bylaws, to the motion of the approval of the bylaws. Councilman Jay Hahn,
Yes.
Councilman Dan Hahn,
Yes.
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 and yes, these bylaws have, or the bylaws have been amended. Now on the floor is to approve the bylaws as amended.
Move to approve tree board bylaws as amended.
I believe I had that motion already. We did.
Okay.
So now we're voting,
Okay.
Councilman White. Councilman Larson.
Move. Great. So moved.
Are we ready to vote?
We're voting.
Okay,
Yeah.
yes.
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 And yes. Excellent work. Thank you all for sticking with the amendments and the bylaws and the motions and the amendments. Moving on now to new business action item B, which is approval of the Xander's Catering Incorporated's application for the transfer of location of retail liquor license number 18 formerly located at 740 East Main Street, Lander, Wyoming, to 101 Garfield Street in the Baldwin Estate Addition, Block 2, Lots 1 to 2, Commercial District, Lander, Wyoming. I would entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Jinx.
I heard Councilman Dan Han move and Councilman Jay Han second. Rochelle, any further information? Okay. Any further discussion from council? Great, then I will take our vote. Councilman Jay Han
Yes.
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 and yes. That is approved. Now we will approve the first reading of ordinance 2025-3, Quest Corporation, DBA, CenturyLink QC, franchise agreement granting a franchise to Quest Corporation, DBA, CenturyLink QC, on behalf of itself and its affiliates, known as CenturyLink, to operate and maintain a telecommunications system in the city of Lander, Wyoming.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Councilman Larson. Seconded by?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilwoman White, moved by Councilman Larson. Any further discussion or clarification from staff? Seeing none, comments from council? Then Councilman Larson,
Yes.
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 and yes. We have approved the first reading of ordinance 2025-3. Next, item D, authorize the mayor to sign a one-year extension for the Lotra lease and license. Let's get a motion on the table and then discussion.
So moved.
Moved by Councilwoman White,
Second.
seconded by Councilman Jay Han. And now discussion, Regine or Adam, I have you both here.
Thank you, Madam President. The LOTRA two-year agreement expires February 15th. Because we have a request for proposals out for the rodeo grounds and we don't know how that will shake out, LOTRA has agreed to go ahead and sign a one-year extension with the exact same terms that we've had for the last 2 years. And it has been through the LOTRA board.
Great.
And it has been through Adam's review.
Bless you. Comments and questions from council, Councilwoman White.
Yeah, so a question, so if we got an RFP for someone starting 6 months from now, how would that integrate with the LOTRA lease?
Right now, the shared ground is the lease of the rental of the rodeo grounds for the rodeo, Pioneer Days Rodeo, the 3rd and the 4th. So that would overlap if we come up with a concessionaire agreement. And the other thing is LOTRA has some sponsorship signs hanging on our facility there. And so those are the two main things that overlap with this agreement.
Okay.
And even if there was some overlap, I'm sure we could come up with some contractual language to amend it and make it all work.
Okay. That's really the bottom line, making sure that that can happen.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman White. Other questions or comments? Great. Then let's proceed to a vote. Councilman Jay Han
Yes.
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 and yes. Moving on to item E, award McFarland Utilities project bid to the apparent low bidder, Patrick Construction, Inc., in the amount of $1,097,972 and authorize the mayor to sign the notice of award and agreement between owner and contractor for construction contract. Would entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Councilman Larson,
Second?
seconded by Councilwoman White. Regine.
Thank you. This is one of our projects on the SLIB grant loan package. And you see in your packet that it's been approved by SLIB, it's been approved by, or recommended by SLIB, recommended by the engineer in charge. And so if there's any other questions, I'll try and answer them for Lance, but it's gone through the full process to meet the grant requirements.
Thank you. Questions for Regine, Councilman Dan Han.
You know, I've heard over the years that the motel up there has had problems. Can we assume that this project is going to help all these people out up here?
Yeah. By the motel, you mean the Pronghorn Lodge?
Yes.
Okay. Both Pronghorn Lodge and McDonald's will be reconfigured under the construction of this grant. I don't know about problems, but definitely line sizing and easements will be cleared up with this project.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments from council? Seeing none, we'll proceed to approval. Councilman Jehan.
Yes.
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 And yes, that award has been approved. Item F, authorize amendments to the Juvenile Justice Services of Fremont County Agreement and authorize the mayor to sign the updated agreement. I would entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilwoman White. And a second? Seconded by Councilman Dan Hahn. Adam, I think you're describing this for us.
Yeah, so originally they, juvenile services came in and talked about what they were doing and why they were doing it and why they wanted the money they did. This council approved the contract that was drafted. After that, I sat down with the county attorneys, civil attorney, Nate Maxim, and during our discussions and review of the statutes, the way the contract was written is that it says any juvenile that comes through our municipal courts and is serviced through city and municipal services, that's who that money would specifically go to. But the statutes have changed and the single point of entry is to go through circuit courts and district courts. And so we've just amended the language to be more in compliance with the statutes so that it makes more sense. That's all it is. Just a simple update.
Thank you. Questions or comments?
Thank you for that explanation. One comment or question I have is that in consideration, so it states, city shall pay juvenile justice services Fremont County, and it's blank. Do we need to have that completed in order to accept this? Do we want to update this to what our current
The
contract is
previous
with them?
approval was $30,000, and that's what it would be.
Okay,
It's the same contractual amount. For some reason, I don't know why it was taken out, but it is 30,000.
okay,
And when this council approved it for 30,000, then Council President Cox requested that those funds not be transferred to the county until the commissioners had signed off. And then these negotiations occurred in order to update the language. So the contract that you approved as a council last spring is the same contract. We have not paid the funds yet, but it was $30,000.
okay. I mean, it seems like to keep this clean, we should specify that we're paying $30,000. So I would move to amend this for consideration to include the sum of $30,000.
Great. Can you give us a page? I'm just counting a page number on that, Councilwoman White.
Point of order.
And yes,
I don't believe that's the right number, so I wanted to verify that with juvenile justice. I think it was 37.
You can still move to approve the contract based on the previous contract's numbers, and then we can fill those numbers in. But I believe it was around 30,000, whether it was above or below by a plus or minus, it was around 30,000.
Okay, can I take that as a friendly amendment, what you just said?
You can, yes,
Thank you.
actually.
Councilwoman White, would you please restate your motion then?
Move to approve the amendment of noting that the fee here will reflect the fee that was most recently agreed upon.
Any other questions or comments? Without item of business cleared up.
You still need to get a second vote on the amendment.
Thank you. Can I have a second to Councilwoman White's amendment?
Yes, second.
Thank you, Councilman Larson. Let's take a vote on the amendment language. Councilman Jehan.
Yes.
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 And yes. Great. So back to the original, but now amended authorization of signing the agreement and authorizing the mayor to sign the updated agreement. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Great. Let's move to a vote. Councilman Larson.
Yes.
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 And yes. We have authorized the mayor to sign the updated agreement. Thank you, Adam. Item G, authorize the mayor to sign the street lighting agreement between the City of Lander and Rocky Mountain Power for Wood and Sixth Street. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Larson. Seconded by Councilman Dan Hahn. Any discussion? Regine, do you want to introduce all three of these at once? Great, let's do that first.
Thank you. All three of these are the same came from different areas. The street lighting at Wood and Six was requested by a citizen. The street lighting between on Baldwin Creek was as a result of the school district CAPA grant agreement. And the one between Gannett Peak was requested by the parents in the school district for drop-off of Gannett Peak students. These are all the same. They are just agreements that we have to do where we'll put in a new pole and they'll go on a $8 a month schedule like the rest of our major streetlights.
Thank you. Questions for Regine or any comments from the council? We'll still take all three of these individually. Hearing no comments or questions, let's move to a vote for the Wood and Sixth Street lighting agreement. Councilman Jehan.
Yes.
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 And yes. Item H, authorize the mayor to sign a street lighting agreement between the city of Lander and Rocky Mountain Power for the Baldwin Creek request.
So moved?
Thank you, Councilwoman White. Need a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Jehan. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to a vote. Councilman Larson.
Yes.
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 And yes. Item I, authorize the mayor to sign the street lighting agreement between the city of Lander and Rocky Mountain Power for Gannett Peak School request. I'm sorry, for the Gannett Peak School.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Larson,
Second.
seconded by Councilman Jehan. Any discussion? Councilman Jehan.
Yes.
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 And yes. That authorization has been granted. Item J, approve Joe Kenny's hangar lease extension. I would entertain a motion to approve this lease extension.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Councilman Larson,
I'll second it.
seconded by Councilman Jehan. Chris is not available, but he did email us some information. Regine, do you want to add any? Great. This is a one-year lease extension. Any discussion? Councilman Danhon.
They called me and that problem is so I was bringing it up. The person that called me said that there's no plane in the hangar that's used for storage. I'll get that out there. The only thing I wanted to ask, and I couldn't find it, is that still a city building
Mhm.
and still 200 a month?
Regine.
I believe it's $1,309 a year. Oh, no, 39. Yeah. It's not a monthly lease, it's a yearly lease, and I don't have it in front of me, I apologize.
The reason why this person complained is because there's a lot of people that are looking for storage and for airplanes.
Mhm.
And he was kind of fighting for the little guy,
Mhm.
who's got a plane. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councilman Han. Councilman Josh Han.
That being said, is this something we can table until I don't know how you would have anybody look into something like that or like check into it to see if it's being used for storage to where it could be utilized as a plane hangar?
If I may.
Thank you, Councilman Han. Yes. City Assistant Mayor.
So as airport administrator, Chris Johnson does periodic hangar inspections, and I know John's been through some. They're on about a 2 to 3 year rotating basis. At the time that this was inspected, it did have a plane in it, although Joe Kenny did not own the plane. So it's not against any of our lease rules to go ahead and sublet for that. If there's not a plane in it today, that may be true. Typically, when you guys were approving all of the leases that expired in December, they were just for the land. And those had all been through the same process, the inspections and everything. They were awarded for 5 years. Because the city may want use of the city-owned hangar, and because of some of the things that we've heard around the airport community, that's why we offered him a 1-year extension to see if he can get into compliance.
That's fair.
Thank you. Further comments? Councilman Danhon.
One more question, because I couldn't remember. The standard, I think way back when they were like 5 years, but a standard is like 10 or more, isn't it?
So we have different kinds of leases up there. If you lease the ground from us and you privately own a hangar, the original lease was 15 years long.
Okay.
A lot of that was because they had to go to a financial institution and
Okay,
get that
15
finance, right?
years.
It had an automatic renewal for an additional 5 years. The group of 17 that you guys just did in November, December was that group that had expired in December. And you renewed them for another 5 years under that lease clause.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion on a one-year lease extension for Mr. Kenny? Okay. We have a motion and a second on the table. Let's move to a vote. Councilman Jehan.
Yes.
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 And yes. Moving on to item K, amend the Lander Community and Convention Center groundskeeping independent contractor agreement. Let's put this on the table for discussion first. Who would like to move?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Larson, seconded by Councilwoman White. Rochelle, could you please introduce this?
Yes, so Austin Shields was the successful bidder for this particular contract. Subsequent to the award of that contract to Mr. Shields, he has formed an LLC, which is Frontier Property Cleaning, Maintenance. He has some other projects that he's picked up. And so he requested that we issue checks to his corporation, his LLC, instead of him individually. And I explained to him that the contract was between the city and Austin. That's how it was awarded. That's how it was bidded and successfully awarded. So that it would have to come back before the city council for the language to change if the council wanted it to do so, to be between the city and his LLC with him as the organizer, and checks could then be cut to his LLC. So this would actually be approve and authorized signature of the amended contract with Mr. Shields's property management LLC with him as the organizer. It doesn't change the amount, it doesn't change the term, it just changes the payee.
Clerk Fontaine, do you suggest, I mean, the motion doesn't specify, it's just amend the agreement. I heard you just,
I do,
would you prefer us to?
I do suggest that if council would to amend the line to authorize the amendment and authorize signature of the new agreement.
Great. So let me just get that straight here because we're adding some. So we're looking to amend the Lander Community Convention Center groundskeeping independent contractor agreement and authorize the mayor to sign that agreement with Frontier Landscaping, is that it? Frontier Property Maintenance and Cleaning LLC. It can't be short. Is that appropriate?
Yes.
Great. Then I need someone to move that amendment.
So moved.
Thank you. Seconded?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Jehan, moved by Councilwoman White. We're voting on the amendment language there. I'm sorry, not all in favor. Councilman Larson
Yes.
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 and yes. So now back to the original approval and authorization of the mayor to sign this amended independent contractor agreement. Any further discussion? Moving to a vote. Councilman Jehan.
Yes.
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 And yes. Moving to item L, approve and authorize the mayor to sign Lander Municipal Airport Hangar Space Land Lease Agreement between the City of Lander and William Hovendick for space number 508. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Dan Hahn,
Second.
seconded by Councilwoman White. Chris is not present, but Regine, would you mind introducing this for us?
Thank you. This is the purchase of a hangar from a gentleman that passed away a couple years back, and now his family is disposing of the hangar. He's signed a standard lease, and unless you have questions for me, there was also information from that in Chris's email.
To the point that the insurance and the bill of sale has been provided as appropriate. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, let's move to a vote. Councilman Larson.
Yes.
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 And yes. Moving to item M, authorize the mayor to sign the MRG grant agreement for $300,000 to perform engineering for Middle Fork Paposia Flood Control and Restoration Project. Let's get this on the table and then discuss. Who will move?
So moved.
Moved by Councilwoman White. Need a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Larson. Regine, can you introduce this, please, and then we'll discuss it.
Thank you. I want to note that this is the same MRG grant that you guys signed a resolution for to make sure that we could take an application down to the SLIB board. At the time, it was referred to as a farthing slip. So and the name changed because we don't need to indicate a single landowner in a full reach of a river. So that just made sense. The engineer asked if they could change that to the Middle Fork Paposia Flood Control and Restoration Project. It is, the name change doesn't affect the MRG grant agreement, and the grant agreement in your packet is a sample grant agreement. We were just awarded that while the mayor and Shari were down there Thursday, and so we don't have that Attorney General's agreement yet. But when we get it, we'd like the mayor to be able to sign it, and then we could go ahead and authorize the agreement in the next agenda item.
Thank you. Comments or questions?
So,
Councilman White.
Thank you. Mostly being clear, so I can appreciate why they want the name change, and I can also imagine it's going to somehow be understood by the community that we're moving forward with flood mitigation from the larger study. So I hope we can all be really clear that this is specific to the farthing slip issue that's happening downstream.
Mhm. And the way I like to say that is the farthing slip was one of the catalysts for this. But we really need to address all of the flood mitigation that may happen if you guys approve it from Main Street down to the end of the city limits line.
Councilman Dan Hahn.
Reading this, this goes from the bridge down, right? Main
Right.
Street down.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, because listening to all this, everything beforehand, that was a main concern.
Yeah.
I mean, even if the wall was built, there could, if it took the sewer lagoons out, that was a major
Right.
deal. So, okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, then let's move to a vote. Councilman Josh Hahn.
Yes.
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 And yes. Finally, item N, authorize the mayor to award the Middle Fork Paposia Flood Control and Restoration Project to Strike Consulting Group for up to $600,000. I'll look for a motion to get this on the table.
Go ahead.
Okay, your light was on. So moved.
Thank you, Councilman White, and is seconded by?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilman
Yeah.
Josh Hahn. Thank you. Regine, anything further to add to your description you just gave us?
I just want to note that in Exhibit A of this agreement is the scope of work, and that is where it defines that they will be doing discussions with whiteouts for the farthing slip and Main Street Bridge to determine the potential alternatives. And then further, it goes to say, preparing two conceptual alternatives for downstream reach below Main Street Bridge that incorporates the Corps of Engineers design. So those are the two key things in the scope of work that indicated is reach 2 of a flood mitigation proposal.
Thank you. Any further comments or discussion or questions? Hearing none, we'll move to approval of, or authorization, I should say. Councilman Larson.
Yes.
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 And yes. We now need to move into executive session to discuss potential litigation. We need a motion to enter executive session.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Larson,
Second?
seconded by Councilman White. Any discussion? Well, no discussion. Councilman Jehan?
Yes.
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 And yes, we'll now adjourn to executive session and then return here before adjourning the meeting. Thank you. Council, we need to move to exit executive session. Who will
Move to adjourn executive session.
Thank you, Councilwoman White,
Second.
seconded by Councilman Jay Han. Councilman Larson, will you vote? Kick us off.
Yes.
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 And yes, and now move to adjournment of the meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman White,
Second.
seconded by Councilman Dan Han. Councilman Josh Han, your vote.
Yes.
Go ahead,
Yes.
Councilman Dan Han.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm going fast. And yes, we are adjourned. Thank you all. Do I gavel? I'm not gaveling.